Blender 4.3 Beta is here. In this video, I want to take a tour of the latest geometry node innovations. From exciting new nodes which bring with them a fresh array of powerful new possibilities, to a faction of familiar nodes who have had some fanciful feature facelifts. So, let's follow the noodle, shall we? First, there's the For Each Element zone, where nodes are evaluated multiple times, just like the simulation and repeat zones that we already know and love. But here, the evaluation happens once for each of a selected element. For example, I can take these cubes and for each face create a curve line, using that face's position and normal as its start position and direction. Then, converting each face's curve to 10 points, I can instance spheres on them. Spheres scaled with the distance between the original face and the point. The output for each of the elements is automatically joined together and piped out of the bottom green socket, while this second socket up here outputs the original geometry. There's also this integer socket over here, which gives us the index of each element. A variation on this particular innovation in zonage has been carried through to the repeat zone, where a new iteration socket now gives us the iteration number for each iteration. And if you're a zonehead, you're really being taken care of with Blender 4.3. Remember that pesky skip checkbox in the simulation zone you kept accidentally pressing? No, I don't either. The new math integer node allows you to do math directly with integers. Its menu has both operations familiar and to Google. The hash value node can hash various attributes into an integer. My mate Dave, who's really into crypto, says that hashes can be used to generate stable randomness. I said, "That's cool, Dave, but how long are you going to be staying on my couch?" Now here's a change that affects multiple nodes. String input sockets have been widened to make maximum use of a node's width. The label now appearing as a placeholder, waiting to be erased. All of this makes longer strings much more legible. See? Names are very popular these days because next we have the new Set Geometry Name node. This lets us name our instances so we know who is who in the spreadsheet, where this new area here shows us which geometry is used by which instance. This will make debugging instances a lot easier. And now we come to the Gizmo nodes, named after that adorable furry creature in the classic 1984 movie Splash. These are something very new because they allow us to create gizmos in the viewport. Gizmos that can be manipulated to modify geometry node inputs, just like this one on this grid node. You don't connect the gizmo directly to the input, but the input to a value node that you connect to the gizmo. This creates a neat new kind of noodle, signifying that the value node is controlled by the gizmo, which, connected to the grid, controls its X size. When I let go of the mouse, the gizmo returns to the origin. We can maintain its position by creating a two-way dependency, where the changed value affects the gizmo position and the gizmo position changes the value. If this isn't hands-on proceduralism, I don't know what is. Transforming our grid doesn't automatically transform our gizmo. We need to tell it to do that, and we can tell it to do that by joining it in. All three gizmo nodes work in the same fundamental way, with the value connection being the big new idea to chew on, and I suspect the second hottest geometry node YouTube topic this 4.3 season. Next, node timings are more accurate, which is great news for those of us who use them to time our eggs. And speaking of baking, bakes can now be packed into your Blender file. In fact, they are by default, which makes them as easy to share as a Bakewell tart. Now, a word about warnings. Group warnings. Here, I have a mesh circle node inside a group, with an input linked to its vertices. If there's an error with a node inside a group, we already get a warning on that group. Well, now we can customize these warnings with the warning node. Sure, It may arrive like a drunk robot, but we can use its Boolean input to determine the conditions in which a warning is shown. And we can use the string input to set the warning's message. There are 3 types of warning available. This is an error warning, but there's also a warning and an info warning. A warning node is evaluated if the group that contains it is, and if this group is inside other groups, all warning types get sent to the very top by default, though the new warning propagation setting allows us to control this on a node-by-node basis. Finally, with this guy, there's a Boolean output. This could be used to connect the warning state to a switch, changing the geometry output to make it very clear in the viewport that something's gone terribly wrong. Blender 4.3 comes with a whole new version of Grease Pencil, and you better believe that geometry nodes support it. Many of our favourite curve nodes, like this trim curve, now work with Grease Pencil geometry. This is because geometry nodes look at a Grease Pencil object and see curves organised in layers. And if we stare at the spreadsheet, we can see them too. To manage these layers, there's the new Merge Layers node. This is an important optimizing tool, merging them by either name or group ID. To make Grease Pencil geometry compatible with everything that curves are, we can convert back and forth with these 2 nodes. Grease Pencil to curves and curves to Grease Pencil. With the latter, you can also generate Grease Pencil geometry from scratch. In short, which I am, Grease Pencil is now warmly embraced by geometry nodes, which means we can now do with Grease Pencil geometry so many geometry nodey things, like building this simulation with your favorite Grease Pencil masterpiece. Well, that's it for new nodes in Blender 4.3 beta. They did good, didn't they? A shout out to my Patreon members for keeping me real, and a blurry pan across the names of the top tier. Though if you pause it, you can read them, I checked. If you like to support people that deliberately make things the hard way, do say hi. One day I will tell you the story of how I once saw a man have an argument with a squirrel. But that one day is not today.